Good evening. Welcome to Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. I'm your host, Joshua Solomon. And with me, as always, is the Honorable J.P. Marzullo. How you doing, J.P.?
I'm doing okay.
Doing okay? Just okay?
Just okay.
We've spent years waiting for the events that took place today, or this week.
All right, and I can
You're
tell
just
you
okay?
then. No, I just came back from New England College. It was Founders Day there, and as you know, the school was founded for military people coming back from World War II. So the Founders Day speaker today was one of our favorite guests, was Captain Lynn Blankenbecker. So that was really great. We had a good turnout. Of course, I think they all are told to come, but that's okay. Yeah.
Voluntold.
Yeah, right, voluntold, exactly. So yeah. I'm waiting for, we're going to have a heat wave, I understand, on Wednesday. It's going to be like
really?
20.
Today's Wednesday. And
Oh, that's right, you're right. I got missing days. A little behind. No, tomorrow. This is what happens when you retire. You never can figure out what day it is, except I know I'm supposed to be here on Wednesday, so I should have known that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway.
There's no heat wave out there yet,
No,
JP.
tomorrow it's going to be 20.
The last 2 days have been brutal.
Yeah.
I didn't even finish clearing. I have 2 driveways.
Yeah, I know.
I cleared one driveway, and I gave up on the other one. It was too cold to even be out there.
Yeah.
Even bundled up and all this, and the heated hand grips and all the toys on. No, wasn't making a dent in it.
So yeah. Good going.
So do you want to introduce our guest?
Sure. Tonight we're honored to have Chuck McGee on, who is the Vice President of Spectrum Marketing. So, hi, Chuck.
Hi, JP. Josh, thanks for having me.
But you've done other things besides Spectrum.
You see your hat?
You're a Marine.
I am a Marine. In my youth, as I said to Donna earlier, many years and many pounds ago. I've worked for the National Right to Work Committee. I've traveled around the country working campaigns in Virginia, Colorado, and Montana. Shanghaied my wife from Denver, brought her back here to New England. And obviously, those of you might remember, I did a stint at the New Hampshire Republican State Committee, and then I came over to Spectrum. We're just celebrating 20 years come this March, and still privileged to work with campaigns around the country, from Texas to Connecticut and all over New England.
Yeah, Maine just recently, right?
Maine, we did some work in Maine. Yeah. Just got.
So tell us about Spectrum and what it is and what it does. Because I think a lot of us think of it as this thing we get in the mail.
Well, thank you. That's certainly
that's not a bad thing.
That's how we were founded. That's what we're probably most well known for. It represents about 10% of our business. Primarily, Spectrum is a print and direct mail business here in Manchester. We're right across the river from the studio here. We've got about 240 employees. And
wow. Really?
Yeah, we've got.
I didn't know that many.
We do. We have a big facility, big campus, a huge sign shop. Anything from vehicle wraps to all the stuff you see in the state liquor stores, ADA signs for compliance with the Braille and all of that. Anything you can imagine. I had the privilege of doing a bunch of stuff for Governor Ayotte's inaugural. And then we have 20 designers full-time on staff in the building every day, all the print and addressing machinery that you can think of. So when it comes to political season, we operate around the clock. I lead a 4-person political team within Spectrum, so the bulk of our business is still commercial furniture stores, gymnasiums, gyms, lawn care, that kind of thing. And
so that's the largest part of your business, marketing.
That's
right?
the direct mail is the largest part of our business for sure. Yeah, we do all over the country. We just picked up a brand new coffee franchise that is killing it with direct mail.
What's the name of that?
7 Brew.
Seven Brew.
I couldn't tell you where it was located, but they have quite a few number of stores, and they're doing very, very well with it. We do a lot of Ace Hardware.
Oh, wow.
On the commercial side, mail is really performing better than it ever has in the past.
Why do you think that is?
When digital first came out in my business, there was the talk that digital was going to put all the mail guys out of business, and there was certainly a concern there. But what's really happened is you see this blending of digital and broadcast TV. You don't really have a lot of broadcast TV anymore. It's kind of a you're getting campaigns, particularly in the political world, that run these ads, on what they call OTT, which means you're streaming TV, or they run Facebook digital ads on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, wherever the kids might be these days. You still have your legacy media like Channel 9, which is very profitable, and that's a whole other story for Channel 9. But the TV and the digital are really kind of duking it out, and there's been a little bit of an oversaturation on the digital side, and so we find the mail's doing really well. I sell it for a living, okay? I'm not naive. I know what happens. You get it, you go through it, you throw it away. But sometimes you'll see the Ace Hardware ad, and you're like, I don't need it right now, but I'm going to put it over here in my
that's
stack.
true. Yeah.
I think we all have a stack. I know at my house we have a stack, right? You have a stack, and you put it in the stack. And so somebody has to deal with it. Like you're scrolling through your phone, and you're seeing an ad, and that's great, but it's hard to take action with a coupon on your phone, or it's hard to hold on to it or remember that the physical piece has some value.
So do you ever get mail and you go, geez, why did they waste money sending this to me?
Yeah, there's certainly that.
Like they don't have to send it to me because I see it 10 times a day at work.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that maybe left a bad impression was Nikki Haley's campaign. As you remember, she had a super PAC supporting her, and they were literally putting out 6, 7, 8 pieces per day.
Yes.
All to the same residents?
All to the same people, yes.
So the same people would get 4 or 5 from the same candidate in a single day.
Yeah, I remember that.
It occurred probably for about a week.
Yep.
Honestly, that was just people in the business being greedy.
Yeah.
Like every business, there's bad actors in political campaigns, and that was not good for my business. I think that left a negative connotation. But we do a lot of races in New England where there's not a lot of competitive races. So sometimes a candidate puts out 3 or 4 pieces of mail, and that's all people are going to see. They don't get, if you're in Vermont or Connecticut or Rhode Island, they don't tend to have a lot of competitive campaigns. So it really adds real value to a campaign.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember when I moved up here from Annapolis, right, like a little over 20 years ago now, and I couldn't figure out why people were mailing me this stuff. Now, I was an independent, so I was getting stuff from both sides. And when I ran for office, not a state office, but in town, people would say to me, you really should send a mailer out. So I didn't know much about it, so I actually made a one-sheet thing that told them who I was, why I want to run, and I mailed it. And I got more from that than I understood. I mean, I had no idea. And then I ran for vice chair. That was my first time working with you guys, with Kelly.
Sure.
And we had these little stickers, and all it said was vote JP when I was running for vice chair of the party. And that kind of opened my eyes to that. And when I ran for the State House, people would say, well, why are you sending mailings out? Well, I learned the hard way that there's a lot of people in our state that don't even have the internet, and and now that I'm older, you know when your mailman comes or doesn't, your letter carrier, excuse me, comes or doesn't come. So you're waiting for that, right? You're waiting for that to come.
We call that the mail moment. The post office.
Unfortunately, I work from home, and I know exactly when my mail guy comes every day.
So you're getting there.
I'm getting there.
I'll give you an interesting stat. The post office, for all its faults and warts, really does handle the political mail very well. And they do a lot of research on the mail. And they call that part where you go out and get the mail from the mailbox the mail moment. And they've broken it down by gender, and it's 74% female to male. So 74% of the people who grab the mail out of the mailbox and bring it to the house every day are female.
That's about right. She goes out and gets the mail about 75%
it's one of the things that we key our designers on. We try to keep that in mind.
That's interesting.
Because, I can send the hardcore gun piece to the guy in the house, but if Donna throws it away before you get it, it doesn't do me any good. So we try to keep that in mind when we're designing the piece. In fact, one of the strategies that I've been trying to employ as best as possible lately with my state representative candidates, in particular, because we have 400 in New Hampshire, there's a lot of them, is to kind of go back to that old school 2-color or black and white mailer, because simply from the fact that it looks old school, it looks homegrown, it looks local, right? Everybody wants the color and the gloss, and I certainly can give that to them. I sell a lot of it. But when you get something with a Cheshire label, which in the old days we thought was like, oh, this is a mass mailing, it's got a label on it.
Right.
Now you get something that's a colored postcard with black ink on it and a label. You're like, oh, somebody did this at home.
Right.
So,
right.
So it looks, I guess, authentic. It certainly helps break through in those years like this year in 2024, where you had, enormous volumes in the mailbox come election time.
Yeah, and I remember setting up, I think it was Irf, myself, and I'm trying to think of who the third, maybe Gary. We worked with one of your people, and we took pictures in front of the town halls. And then we sort of kind of put them on one postcard. And that was great because a lot of people didn't know Irf that well and may not have known me that well, but everybody knew Gary, Gary Hopper. So that paid off, I think. That kind of thing where they kind of join forces. And I guess is that common in?
It's starting to be more common. Like in my town, in Goffstown.
You have like 15 Republicans running.
They run as a slate. And if you get that way, you have a single poster or a single mailing that has the names of the folks that are Republicans or conservatives or are going to vote together, and
that could be dangerous, though.
That way, when you're in a position where you have your general ballot that says, vote for.
Oh yeah, it's all on there.
Vote for 4 out of 8 people.
You know who they are.
They did a good job this year in Goffstown running together as a team. Yeah,
right.
Sure did.
So
and Jess Edwards' group does a great job too.
They do. We're in Auburn.
Yeah, we're in Auburn. They do that. But
so that leads me to my next question. You were talking about taking pictures and bringing it to them, and you're talking about designing.
Yeah, they will.
I would have thought that the campaigns or the person running would develop the content themselves and just hand it to you. Here, print this. Is that not how it works?
I have some candidates do it, but
because I feel like if they're coming to you as a printing company, as a marketing company, and saying, "Here, I need to do a mailing," I feel like if you're doing the designing for them, human nature comes into play here, right? And your own politics comes into human nature.
Sure.
So do they come to you with, here's what I want to mail out and here's the message I want to send? Like how does that work?
Candidates typically come with some sense of why they're running and what their general message is. One thing we really enjoy working with what they call down ballot candidates. That's your executive councilors, your state senators, your state representative candidates. And mind you, a state representative candidate who spends a lot of money in New Hampshire might spend $25,000. A state representative race in Texas is $1 million race.
Wow.
Right? So they're not apples to apples. And one of the things that we always like to do when we start working with candidates is start at the basics. A lot of your down ballot candidates don't have a lot of campaign supports from consultants and things like that. And we'll go through them. The first thing we'll do is kind of come up with a vote goal. And they'll be like, well, that's 50% plus 1. And we say, well, that's not exactly accurate. What we're trying to do is deduce how many votes we need to secure to win the election. We can do that kind of historically, and we do some guessing on whether or not turnout's going to be up or turnout's going to be down. In a competitive year, and you have a lot of spending, that's going to drive your turnout, 10 to 12% higher than a comparative presidential year. So we do some guessing there, but we derive a vote goal, and then we look at the race. Is it a head-to-head race? Is that an open seat head-to-head, or is it an incumbent? What are the weaknesses? Is it a multi-member race? And then we come up with something called a messaging grid. Some people call it the Leesburg grid. Basically, not to get into too much detail, because I know we're on a limited time here, but what are you going to say about yourself? What are you going to say about your opponent? What are they going to say about you? And what are they going to say about themselves? And that really all has to go into the mix before we get to the palm card. So we'll start with the palm card, and typically you'll start with a palm card, and then the first mail piece will kind of devolve. That'll kind of devolve into the first mail piece. But headlines are super important on direct mail. 80%, 90% of the value right in the headline, because they're going to look at it, they're going to look at the photo, they're going to look at the logo, and they're going to read the headline, right? So you're trying to build a persona almost. One of the big challenges in politics in my time in doing it, again, since 1992, is that we've moved so far from issues to personality, and how you feel about somebody's, whether or not you vote for them. So it doesn't mean that issues aren't important. Certainly, you know, we had inflation and immigration were driving the debate this year, but generally people are more voting on how they feel about somebody. So we're trying to build John Reagan was a perfect example. Former State Senator John Reagan, you know, when he first came to me to run for state senate many years ago after serving in the House, maybe even with you, you know, I branded him a tax fighter.
Yes.
And that was on everything we had for John was tax fighter, right? And that really leaves no ambiguity, right? You know what a tax fighter is. You know what you're getting. So they'll come to me. We'll do a bio. We'll get their issues. We'll talk about it. We'll look at the issues. You know, I really try to advise them to talk about things that I think are gonna, because I know the polling. So, you know, some candidates are dead set against talking about something in their town. I'm like, okay, well, we'll roll that in, but let's not lead with it. Let's lead with these other things. And so we'll, I write the copy. They'll usually take a couple of photos for me. I'll create the logo, and we put the thing together. And we'll go back and forth a couple of times on edits. And at the end of the client, they're paying for it. They can say what they want, but we drive a lot of the messaging for them.
I guess so. You're going to be writing copy for both sides of the issue, too.
Both sides of the issue.
Well, do Democrats come to you?
No. Oh, no. Sorry.
That's what I'm getting at.
Oh, sorry.
No.
We are Republican exclusive.
Oh, okay.
No. I wouldn't know what to say.
Like if somebody comes to you and asks you to print these things.
You know, every once in a while we have somebody gets a little cross with us about that. But yeah, we're exclusively in the conservative Republican camp. And
I gotcha.
And I mean, we have some races that are quote unquote nonpartisan at the municipal races, but typically it's all tax fighters or people.
Right to work people.
Right to work people, exactly.
Which is coming up soon.
There's a hearing today on right to work.
Yeah.
Yes, very excited about the right to work issue. As I mentioned, I worked for them in Colorado and Montana, and I've been helping them here in New Hampshire behind the scenes for over 20 years, and it looks like we may have the votes this
might
year
be the year.
to do it. It's pretty exciting, and you know, it's not really whether you're pro-union or anti-union. Some people might be familiar with what they call the Janus decision. That was a ruling from the United States Supreme Court that came down, I'm going to say 5 years ago. It could have been 10 years ago now. I lose track of time. But Janus basically extended right to work to all public sector employees. So your policemen, your firemen, your teachers, your state employees, they all now freely enjoy whether or not they want to be a paying dues member to the union. New Hampshire's right to work law would simply extend that to your private sector unions, your AFL, your Teamsters, and other sectors.
And I remember them; they'll always show up with busloads of union people
That's
and
a passion.
sit up in the galley, and they'll all have the same colored shirts on, and they'll boo if you. I mean, it's kind of interesting actually. And I was, I think it was Karen Testerman and I had a sign off for. I can't think of the guy's name. Broderick. Who was the kid that was doing the right to work?
McCain?
Yeah, McCain. There you go. So I was on it. McCain had me part of that, and it was kind of interesting. I mean, I learned a lot about how that works. So.
It's a very passionate issue. The guys and gals can come and they can be a little intimidating, and we know they're very, very, very passionate about it. I understand it, but we don't set it up to be antagonistic. We're not against the unions.
No, right.
One of the challenges I've always had with unions is that they'll vote to have the union in, but then they don't recertify like ever. Like, you know, just because my granddaddy decided to have a union shop here at the screwdriver factory, it's 50 years later. Maybe we could take a vote again to decide if we still want to be a union
Right,
shop, right? I
right.
mean, it just shouldn't go into perpetuity.
So that hearing was today.
It was hearing today in the House Judiciary Committee, or excuse me, Labor Committee, and then they'll call it to the floor whenever they get to it. Under my understanding of the rules, and I'm not 100% intimate with the rules of the House, but my understanding is the rules this year allow the Speaker to call it for a vote on the House floor when it's maybe most advantageous.
You can change the rules. I mean, that happens sometimes too.
I think he can time it.
But he can, yes.
When we
he'll
have,
look around and say, okay, we have the right number of people. We're going to bring it up
We have the
now.
right people. That's right.
Yeah, and they do that with other bills, by the way.
I'm sure they do. I'm sure.
Yeah, and that's how we lost some bills that we should have won because people either
Because
left
we weren't
or
paying attention.
Yeah, right. Well, that's part of it too.
Yeah.
Or they didn't lock them in like they did when I was there. They locked everybody in overnight. You couldn't leave to make sure you got through all the bills because you had a deadline, and we weren't even close to it. So the speaker at the time, Steve Shutloff, he had them lock the doors, and we had to stay there until all the bills were done. And you get pretty cranky when it's like 3 a.m. and haven't eaten for a while, and so it gets really contentious at that point.
I was disappointed when they put the air conditioning in. Frankly, I liked it when it got to June and it was like 90 degrees and nobody wanted to be there
And the
anymore.
bills went
They're like, okay, we're just gonna vote to get it through.
Yeah, we'll do a voice. We're
We're just gonna vote so we can be done and go home.
Well, that sort of happened too at the end of that, is people like saying, okay, let's just get this over with, So it was more bipartisan in that time. But the air conditioning, you always had to ask permission to take your jackets off. And now I see the way some of the people dress to go to the State House is.
Well, they're taking their lead from Fetterman, so.
He showed up for the inauguration in the same outfit,
Yep.
his shorts and sweatshirt.
Yeah.
He must have been hanging around Bill Belichick, maybe.
He voted with the Republicans
I know
on
he did.
Hegseth.
Yeah, he did,
he's
so-
an interesting cat.
He has declared. I mean, there was a rumor about him switching parties. I
No,
don't know
he's-
where it came from, but he said, no, we're not doing that.
Right.
And
But that doesn't mean he won't vote the way we want him to.
Right. He's more of a reasonable Democrat. Like we've talked about this in the past.
Yeah.
Well, I remember
when
when
Tip O'Neill could have a discussion with the president without getting contentious.
Right.
So.
But
he called on Menendez to step down. Remember
Oh,
when
yeah.
Menendez in New Jersey?
Yeah. Yep.
And I was like, well, that's easy. That's a no-brainer. I mean, why can't Gene Shaheen? I mean, I couldn't.
This is true.
I mean, what do you have to lose for calling out a corrupt New Jersey state U.S. senator? I mean, so it's nice to see that there's some.
So we've had people on and tried to figure out why we can't win any of the congressional seats. What is the problem with that? And
That's certainly been a big topic of discussion here in New Hampshire behind the scenes the last several months. I've been on email chains and seen people talking about it, and I don't think there's anything nefarious in the voting. I know some folks think there's some kind of hanky-panky with the voting, but if you go up and you ever sit through a recount, it's pretty interesting to watch how people cast the ballots. I think it's just a matter of finding the right
candidate
people. Yeah, I do. Yes, I do. I think Russell was a dear friend of mine.
Prescott, you're saying?
Russell Prescott. Yeah, I've known him since 2000, and
He's a really
he's
nice guy.
Totally nice
Yeah,
guy. Give
he
me a
is.
shirt off his back.
Yep, he would.
I ran over his cat and killed his cat, and with all his kids watching in the window one time. You'll have to ask him about that story.
Oh no!
And but I think you have to find that right mix between Carolyn Levitt, which was very gung ho, and Russell, which is maybe a little bit
Very laid back.
a little bit too laid back in my opinion. But that's just who
I would
Russell
agree.
is. Russell's a very nice guy.
Yep.
And I think he did very well with what he had. And it's not like the old days where you can kind of declare and ramp up and then take on the incumbent. You really have to be a threat from the time that you declare. There's no more real grace period. You have
Sort of like the Kelly race,
right, exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
she came into that race with huge name ID.
Yep.
She was clearly going to be a player from the get go, and so because it's all people like to complain that Washington's not helping or the party's not helping, but all the party organization does is look at the numbers. They look at the numbers, and
Yep.
if you've got the polling numbers or you've got the money, then they're going to be there. If you don't have one, or if you don't have either, they're not going to be there. They just
Yeah, we've talked about that a little because to me it's like I don't bet, but it would be like betting. If you know your horse can't win, why would you even put the money there? You'd put it on a horse that had a better option to win. And I saw that in several races where Marilinda Garcia. I was working with her when she ran, and she was going to be this new bright star for the Republican Party. And
I liked her.
I did too, and then all of a sudden, I mean, she went down to D.C. It looked like she had people behind her, and it never happened. And then the National Republican Committee figured we can't put any more money into her because it looks like she's going to lose the race, that she can't win, and that's happened a lot. And I look back at Charlie Bass and see what he did, and that had something to do with personality, I think, as well. But not
the district
the same.
was a little bit better when Charlie was there, but Charlie was a longtime legacy Yankee family. He had the name ID from his father, certainly, and was able to raise the money. It's really, when you're running a federal race now, it's kind of a two-part race.
Okay.
You're running the D.C. race, and you're running the New Hampshire race. And it sounds really weird, but you've really got to have you've got to know the players to be able to find the money in D.C. Matt Mowers was really good at that.
Yeah.
I was sorry to see Matt come up short the first time against Pappas because Matt would have been fantastic. Matt did very well in the fundraising. He knew the D.C. players, so he ran that campaign up here and he ran the campaign down in D.C. and that's really what you have to do. And I think the other part of it, I think, is how we go after these federal candidates. Jeanne Shaheen's going to be an interesting.
That's coming up.
Interesting one to go after. I've talked to a few people, and I said, look, I don't think you can take the traditional messaging to Jeanne Shaheen. Everybody knows her, or her staff has helped somebody at some time.
Yes.
She has a fantastic staff, but, let's talk about how much Jeanne Shaheen's pocketbook has grown since she's been in the U.S. Senate, because it's a lot.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how much time she spends in York, Maine, which is where her family compound is, and how little time she talks or spends in New Hampshire. Let's talk about how she's, all upset with Russia and wants to take on Russia and gung-ho on Russia, but she leaves Israel out to dry and votes against Israel. So I think there's some points of attack that you can take on Shaheen. The points of attack that I would take on Pappas if he goes again next year is talk about how he's just a backbencher. I think that's a fair critique of him. He's just never part. He's never part of the conversation.
Right.
I mean, just the other day, watching the Hegseth confirmation, even Shaheen got into it, right?
She did.
But we don't see any of that. I mean, we see congressmen and senators from D.C., from all other states, making a name for themselves. Right, and speaking
and you don't have to be bombastic to do it, but I mean,
exactly,
but be part of the conversation.
Anything about Pappas until it's campaign time.
No, and he's a nice guy, so you're not ever going to cast him as a mean guy or an angry guy.
No,
but I mean, I think we deserve better than a backbencher who's never part of the conversation.
That's a good point.
Yeah, he brings home some crumbs, but he doesn't ever really go twist arms for money. He doesn't get anything more than he would have got if they just toss him a few bones. And so I think that's the angle of attack that you take on him. It's just like, look, we need a workhorse, not a show horse. And
we've used that term, yeah.
and I remember, I'll never forget, God bless him, Matt Mowers, rightly, he called out Pappas in that first debate for an undisclosed relationship. And the first thing that Pappas did was he looked right in the camera like this at the people in New Hampshire, and he lied. That was his first instinct, was to lie. So
Yeah.
I think
Isn't
that's
that
an
the
issue that's
first
probably
instinct of every
that's an old issue that probably can't rehash. But I think
That's
that
their first day of orientation.
I think that angle of not delivering, not being part of the conversation, not going the extra mile for New Hampshire, not getting it done. The other angle on Shaheen is transparency. My understanding is that bridge that they walked over. Remember, we all joined Biden and the whole congressional delegation. We walked over that bridge up on the PEMI.
Yeah.
My understanding that bridge is not fixed.
Yeah, that's what I've heard too, actually.
I mean, I could be wrong.
No,
It's
I've heard
not
the same.
Somebody watching this
better?
show can tell me otherwise. I'd love to know it. But my understanding that bridge is not fixed. And that goes back to accountability. All that money we spent on the broadband and what
Yeah.
nobody's hooked up yet or 10 people are hooked up yet. So
Yeah.
don't
There's-
just go spend my money. Like, where's the accountability?
Yeah.
So do you think that after this last round that the state party we can go out and we need to find that person that's not over the top, but is not a back burner type person, someone who's got the personality and the name recognition. If we find that person, do you think we can go to DC and say, look, guys, we took the state house, the state senate, the executive office, or the executive committee, we took the corner office. So
I
we
think
know
certainly-
how to win a race in New
I think it
Hampshire
certainly
now, and here
bolsters
we've
our
got
case.
a candidate. Can we get some help
I
this
think
time around?
I think it certainly bolsters our chances. Again, it's a name ID or a money thing. I think you got to bring one of those two factors to the table, and candidate recruitment. I preach it over and over again. If you ask my partners at Spectrum, I'm going to tell you that's all I talk about. Candidate recruitment is 90% of this battle. Yes, all the other things are important, the parades and the mail and the TV and the digital and the messaging, but candidate recruitment is so very vital. And we just need to dig down, and it's everybody in the Republican Party's job to try to find good people. And sometimes it can require, I'm very active with the Knights of Columbus in
Okay.
Concord, and
Yep.
sometimes I have to ask guys to join, and I don't get them to sign up for 2 or 3 years later. So we have to plant those seeds today, right?
Right.
You have to say, hey, have you ever thought about running for office?
Right.
No, I don't want to do that. But, it plants a seed, and they come back and...
Yeah, I think that what I've seen is that our bench on the local levels is getting better. Some just local, like a selectman and head of the registry of voters or whatever. We're starting to see, at least in my town, we're starting to see more people be involved that are Republicans. And I've always said to them, so what's your next step? I mean, what do you like this? Are you having a good time? Do you want to see more? Do you want to do more? And what I was going to ask you is, do we need new faces, or can we, like Scott Brown has talked a little bit about running against Shaheen. I mean, should we be looking for other, in your opinion, do we need to look at, rising star or somebody that's been around for a while, maybe left, and then want to try to get them back in again? What do you think?
I'm always for fresh faces and new voices, but again, they'd have to be somebody who brought some level of either name ID or resources, either having personal resources or the connections to get it. So I know that not everybody's on board with Scott Brown, but Scott brings, he starts the race as an instant candidate. Right. He's a serious contender from the outgo, just from the name ID and having shown that he's been able to raise money before. So I think we could do a lot worse than Scott Brown. If there's other players out there, now's the time to start. You can't wait on these things anymore. It's not a start in 2026 endeavor. It's a start right now thing. And so I'm hopeful that people are out there talking about it. I'm hoping they're out there listening to other folks about the best way to take Senator Shaheen on. Make no mistake, she's running again.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
There's a lot of talk about her not running again. It's not happening. You don't just step away from a...
Yeah, I think she'd be, 82 or something when she it doesn't matter, but...
She'd be the average age of a U.S. Senator, it seems like these days, right?
Yeah, exactly.
They're all very old. So I think that Jeanne Shaheen is beatable. I think it's going to take the right person, and that's really, in my opinion, the role of the state party chairman.
Yes.
I know that we ask our state party, quote unquote, to do a lot. But at the end of the day, the state party really boils down to, as you know, maybe 3 or 4 people, right?
Yeah.
There's only 1 or 2 staff members and then the chairman himself.
Exactly.
And to me, candidate recruitment is key. The House and the Senate caucuses in New Hampshire now are doing very well,
Yep.
standing on their own. They both raised substantial amounts of money for this last election. So money is always important. Yes, I would agree, but candidate recruitment is paramount.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of, Chris Ager. Do you see him doing anything else?
Well, Chris has hinted that he's going to do something, but I don't.
He hasn't told us what, though. We've had him on the show a couple of times.
Yeah, he hasn't
He's-
divulged. He's keeping his vest.
Yeah, it's
cards
that West
close to his
Point
vest.
attitude, don't let anybody know the last second.
But the first congressional race, I remain hopeful for. The second congressional race, because where I live, tougher sled,
Yeah, me
especially
as well.
especially now with a
Goodlander in there.
a Goodlander in there with $30 million in a trust fund. So
Yeah, that's going to be it. And she used her, Tamposi name in the beginning of the election. I remember that. So she kind of leaned on that too. So she's got name
it's going to be an
recognition.
interesting dynamic. A lot of people said to me now that she's going to be the next one to step up for the Democrats. Whereas, it's always been talked about that Pappas will be the next one to step up.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it'll be interesting to see if that comes
I mean,
to
taking Shaheen's
to a head,
position or Maggie Hassan.
or Hassans, or
Yeah.
runs for governor, or I don't know what's next for them.
Oh,
but,
wow. That would be.
But yeah, you got a lot of options with $30 million.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I'd like to see Ayotte stick around for a couple of years and maybe send her back to Washington. So I don't know if that's in her plans.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kelly. I don't know actually, but her daughter will be finished at the Air Force Academy in a few years. So
I don't know.
Maybe it'll be
I'm
time.
thinking of name recognition type. I mean, we need something to happen. We've got 4 seats down there, and we got to get a hold of a couple of them.
Well, I know that he's running into some challenges here in the city, but
Jay, you say.
Jay Rouet is,
Yeah.
certainly showed us how to win
Yeah.
a campaign in a city, worked his tail off.
Yeah.
So I like him for something in the future. I don't know if any of you guys caught the pictures of Frank Ginta on the Facebook over the weekend, but Frank's lost a lot of weight, and
we were just talking about that. Donna and I
and
just talked about that.
I still hope there's something in Frank Ginta's future. I really like Frank.
Yeah, I would
Really?
hope he comes back.
And so there's names out there. I think.
What about Ashu?
Asher? You seem to make a ring, grab at the ring a couple of times and come up short. I haven't really seen him out there, so I
Yeah,
don't
I
know
haven't either.
where he's at.
He's
but,
a good guy too. I liked him.
But Sean Mahoney is one of my favorites.
Sean is another guy.
Sean, obviously a lot older and wiser than he was when he tried the first time, but he's got considerable resources, and I think he's got the personality and the temperament to do the job well. I still think Craig Benson could make a heck of a run for something in the future if the mood
chose to,
If he
yeah.
chose to, if the mood struck him right. I always thought very highly of Governor
Been a while.
Benson.
We're talking
and
20 years ago, right?
For
yes.
Benson? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I first came up here, he was kind of in the mix.
He won the gubernatorial race in 2022.
Yeah.
Sorry, excuse
No.
me, dating myself, friends. 2002. The years they all
That's
run
the first-
together.
exactly.
The years all run together. But Governor Benson, I mean, I think he started out with a pretty decent name ID, even though it was 22 years ago.
Yeah.
And certainly has the personal resources to carry
Yeah.
carry the race. So I think there's names out there. I think the bench is maybe deeper than but these are conversations that have to start now. People have to.
Yeah, I was sorry to see. First campaign I worked on was for Ovid LaMontagne, and I was kind of sad that he just decided he had enough. He ran a lot of times and he
ran
lost a lot of times.
He came
He did
came
get
very
really
close.
close.
He came very close.
Well, the Kelly Ayotte Ovid LaMontagne
Yeah.
race was the one that. And the thing I'll always respect him for, he never asked for a recount because he told me there wasn't enough time to get his voters to vote for Kelly at that point. But he was winning before we went to sleep. And when we woke up in the morning, Kelly had won by
Yeah,
about
I
1,000 votes.
I remember
that?
he came. I was with him on that race.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He came up short in
Yeah.
the northern Grafton County
Oh,
area.
yes, right.
So that was obviously a very big disappointment for him and for me.
Yeah.
Professionally at the time, we got U.S. Senator Ayotte out of it, of course, which was fantastic.
Sure. Yeah.
But Ovid is the kind of guy. Sometimes you have to make a stab at it more than once or twice. He certainly gave it the gung ho, and yeah, he was good. He was a good man.
Yeah, he was.
I don't know. It seems kind of like, we're reaching way back for some of these names, but these are all really good names. Do they still have it in them? I mean, like you said, LaMontagne just decided to.
Yeah, I don't think. I think,
it's not a fun business to be in.
No.
Right? Anyone who's ever run any type of campaign, all of us have.
Yeah.
It's not fun. Folks come at you from all sides. They come after your family. It's just not.
Well, it's changed a lot. I mean, it wasn't always like that.
Maybe that's the case. Maybe we have changed. Maybe the tide is turning, and we can.
I mean, if you think about our district, right, CD2, you had Lawrence, and that came pretty close. Then you had Negron, and we lost that.
close.
And I know that.
If you run a decent campaign in the second CD, you get to 45%.
Right, exactly.
Everybody gets to 45%, and they're all great people.
Yeah.
And you need the $3 million to get from 45 to 51. That's where the $3 million comes in. So unfortunately, the CD2 is a tough go.
Yeah, Marilinda.
Marilinda.
I mean, I thought she had the best shot, actually, at one point. A lot of phone calls for her.
I mean, Lily surprised. Lily held her own over there.
Yeah, but again, she didn't. She got 32 or 33%. I don't remember what it was.
I thought it came up.
Was it higher than that?
I thought it came up. Late in the final analysis.
Oh,
that was
okay.
a little bit higher, but
Yeah.
yeah, a challenge to see. I still like George Hansel over there at some point.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
George is the former mayor of Keene.
Yeah.
Young, tall, attractive guy.
Yeah. I'd love to see George run for that. We thought he was going to do it last time.
Yeah, we did,
Right?
and he's run. He lost in the primary, and
Yeah.
I'm more conservative than George personally, but
Right.
I think he's got the right. I think he's got the right attitude. I think he's got the right platform for a second CD race, and
I agree.
He's the kind of guy I think that could. He doesn't have name ID like Kelly's name ID, but he's got some regional name ID. And I think,
And he can win in that area.
he can win. He
which
won.
is-
He won the mayor's race, right?
Yeah, I mean.
So he's the kind of guy who could probably raise some money to do it.
So we need to make phone calls.
We need to make phone calls. We
to
need
him
to
and say, you know
put our
what?
thinking caps on. And
Here we are. We're speculating on all of these people. We're digging them up and putting them in the race, and we haven't talked to any of them. So.
It's fun to speculate. That's what we do, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's always fun to do that. But as far as Shaheen goes, she's got a machine, and I think Pappas, at least I was under the impression that Pappas was going to try to fill that spot with
How
her
do
help.
we build that machine? Like we're working on it. Like I said, we took all
Well, I
of
think
the
Benson,
state races,
I mean,
but how
he's
do
a-
we build that machine? Benson had a machine.
Yeah, yeah.
I worked with some of his staff too. After the campaign, a couple of guys were on the board of directors of the company that I worked for at the time. So
Oh, okay.
I knew them quite well, and they had a machine. So
I thought Steffi. I still think Steffi Shaheen. I don't know if she's Senator Shaheen's oldest daughter,
I
but
think she is.
Stephanie's. I think is still in the mix there.
I agree.
Every time I think the other side's running out of bench, I think of more names.
They pop up,
And it
right?
discourages me, but no, I think I still think that New Hampshire could be in play at the federal level. I was very, very pleased with the turnout for President Trump in New Hampshire.
Yeah, it was
we
big.
came much closer than anticipated, particularly given the fact that they did not invest in New Hampshire this year, which was disappointing.
Right, they pulled First in the Nation from us. And
Right, and then we, there was some tension between the upper members of the New Hampshire GOP establishment, between the Trump campaign and the party. So, given all that, I thought he did very, very well, and clearly he helped the rest of our ticket. We thought if President Trump lost by 7 points or less, that we would do well, and it proved out to be.
Yeah, you guys are pretty accurate and knowing. One of the campaigns I won't even mention in person, but they knew exactly how many votes they needed. And the night when the votes were coming in, they were at the board. Jacob was at the board figuring out exactly, and he was being asked by this person, how many points do we need? And he says, we got it. I can remember that. And I'm trying to think, how the heck did he figure that out? But obviously there's a way to do it.
Yeah,
you guesstimate sometimes.
We have to do some estimating, but you can historical trends. I tell you, one of the interesting ones for me was Conway this year. Typically, if our candidates can lose Conway by less than 1,000 votes, they're going to be successful. And I think Mark McConkey, who's the new state senator that took the place of Jeb Bradley up there, only lost Conway by maybe 100 votes. Maybe it was 300. It was 300 to 100 votes. It was a very small margin for.
I was really worried
Conway.
about that one because Marsh, who was a Republican, had moved over, and he was pretty well liked up there. And I'm thinking, oh my God, we're going to lose that, but it didn't turn out that way.
Yeah, we beat up Marsh pretty good.
Yeah.
He had submitted some legislation years ago that got branded the Pedophile Protection Act in the media.
Oh, no.
So we had those headlines, and we might have put that on a few mail pieces.
That might have showed up, right?
That might have shown up in the mail. So we beat him up pretty good, and I wasn't overly concerned about that one. I know others were concerned about that one, but
that was a good win.
But it was a good win. But Conway was an example of where the numbers were much different than I was looking at on the plus side.
So do you just know that from experience, or is there a method to figure that out by the demographics of the town? Or
it's historic. It's
historical. Right?
Yeah, 90% of it's based on historical trends. The other part of that again is. I know people lament the amount of money that's spent on politics, but the fact of the matter is the more money spent on a campaign, the higher the turnout's going to be. It's just historical fact. And the other thing that we have going for us in New Hampshire versus other states, believe it or not, is that when turnout spikes like it did in 24, it actually favors our side, Republicans, because there are still, God bless them, a lot of good old boys out there that just don't normally get out to vote. And it really has to be something special,
Yep.
like this year was with the president, to get them to go out and vote. I look at donor reports all the time. I'll give you for instance, there's a very successful auto dealership in Epsom, New Hampshire, and the owner of that very successful dealership had given $2,700 to Governor Sununu. And he lives in Northwood, and we needed a candidate for a special election in Northwood for the State House. So I looked the gentleman up. He hadn't voted for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
He gave $2,700, or maybe it was $2,000, to Governor Sununu, whatever the limit was.
Yeah.
He owns a very successful truck dealership in Epsom, and he doesn't vote. And I shake my head about.
So he donates, he gets involved,
but only once, right? I mean, he hadn't voted, so was he donating all along to somebody or not?
I don't know what.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's a significant amount to donate, and
I don't know what persuaded them to donate $2,000 to Governor Sununu.
And he hadn't voted.
But he has a lot of employees. I think he has 3 locations now.
Wow.
He doesn't vote, and so I was always pessimistic when people said to me, "Oh, we got to go register these people. Oh, we don't have these people voting." But it proves out if you look at the numbers. I wish we could get Scott Pressler up here to do some registration stuff, but alas, our voter registration laws don't allow that. So.
Yeah. What about Andy Cruz? Do you think he certainly got name recognition. He's got the money. I know he's given money to a lot of people.
Well, Andy's doing great work with Governor Ayotte.
Yeah.
Was very instrumental in her
The transition.
her election, and now he's in the transition. And then I think I saw he's going to serve on her college committee there,
Yes.
the efficiency committee. So
Yep.
yeah, he's certainly one that we should keep an eye on.
Yeah.
You know, he's
also a Marine.
he's a Marine, good-looking guy.
Yep.
Business experience.
A lot of experience.
Checks a lot of boxes for sure.
Yeah.
Those are the kinds of people we have to talk to and cultivate and
Yeah,
and-
I think he would do great. I do. I think he would do a great job. That would be a great person. And he hasn't run before.
No, he hasn't run. He hasn't run. And some people are of the mind that you have to go up through the ranks, and other people just skip ahead. It
Yep.
really boils down to the.
I know a guy who did that.
He did.
You got a guy.
His name is Trump. he just skipped right to the top.
He went right to the top. Well,
he didn't want to waste any time.
he's
below.
a top level guy for sure. He's a top level guy. I just got he's younger than me, so I'm going to call him a young guy. He's probably in his 40s. Elected. He's a small business owner. He owns a landscaping company and a portable toilets business, and he lives in Bedford. And this was his first run for office. And his name is Brian Labrie.
Oh, yeah,
And
okay.
got Brian elected.
Yep.
Brian worked really hard.
That was a name out of nowhere. I had no idea who that was.
Spent quite a bit of money, honestly, as compared to most state representative candidates, but paid off. And I think his business experience, and he's also the head of the Snowmobile Association.
Yeah.
I think he'll be a valuable asset. But he's the kind of guy that, I think it will serve him well to be in the House and learn some of the process. And then if he wants to jump up, he has expressed interest in maybe doing something beyond the state House. But that this will give him that foundation to move on. Yeah.
Interesting.
But the executive council's all there. It's really
That was awesome.
it's awesome to see, and I do hope somebody at some point does a salute or a congratulations dinner for Ted Gatsas.
Yeah.
Ted served in the state house, state senate, and was mayor and then executive councilor. Ted certainly put his
I agree.
blood, sweat, and
Yeah, he
tears
was a great
into
guy.
the Republican Party of New Hampshire. So.
I was surprised he never wanted to go to D.C.
Well, he ran for he ran for governor, right? He ran
Yep.
for governor, but
That's
no.
when Zanuna ran.
Yeah, he ran.
Right.
Yeah, that was a. I had other friends in that race, and I was like, "Oh, you're running against us." It's going to be a tough.
Right.
It's going to be a tough live. In fact, I asked somebody today. I said, "Hey, doesn't Charlie Bass have kids?" Wouldn't they be
We're
old,
Charlie's kids.
Wouldn't they be old enough to run for office now?
Well, I saw the shot that Zanunu took today at, I think it was Shaheen. He took a shot at her today. I saw it on New Hampshire Journal.
Good. I hope
A really good shot, and I reposted it. And I'm thinking that sounds to me like he's already starting to do this, and that would be interesting. I would be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he ran again.
For
Anything, not in the state. I think for Senate, or maybe even wait and go after Hassan again.
Well, I'd love to see him do it, but I think his wife would kill him. So I think that's going to be a hard sell.
It might be.
I was thrilled to hear that his boy had joined the Marine Corps.
Yes.
His boy's an enlisted Marine like I was, and
He joined last year, was it?
he did. Yeah,
Yeah.
he did. He's out of boot camp, and he's I believe he's going to be a C-130 navigator.
Oh, wow.
And doing really well. And here's a young man who could have done anything, right?
Yeah.
His father was a governor, his uncle was a U.S. senator, and his grandfather was chief of staff to the White House, and he decided to go serve his country. So I was really
awesome.
proud of him for that. But
Yeah.
there's Sununu, and I think we have the names. I think we just gotta do some research and talk to some folks. One of my big hopes and dreams for the Republican Party in the next several years is to try to do a better job of getting into these cities.
Yeah, I agree.
We've all virtually we've
Given up on
all been virtually given up on Somersworth and Dover and Lebanon and Nashua and Keene I can go Claremont. I can go on and on and on. I think we did maybe pick up one state representative in Nashua this year.
Oh, yeah, that's a tough. Yeah, Nashua had all of them.
In Manchester, I think we picked up a couple this year, but
We picked up a
Was it
senator.
we picked up a state senator for sure. That
She worked her butt off, too.
that was beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely.
I actually tweeted at Ray Buckley early on in the race. I said, "Hey, we're coming for Donna," and he tweeted back at me, laughed. He's like, "Yeah, right." I've always thought that seat was winnable. I mean, Donna obviously was, their leader.
Hey, that was great.
Their leader, but the numbers in that district are not great for the Democrats. But
they got the vote out. That's what she did. She was able to get the vote out.
She got the vote out.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Victoria told you, Senator Sullivan told you, but she was knocking dem doors.
Yes,
Almost
she did tell us.
ex-
She was
almost-
on here. Yeah.
almost exclusively.
She'd been knocking on them doors for years.
Yes.
She had.
Right.
She had.
You know, running for
So-
mayor against.
But we
Joyce
can't
and,
concede these cities. We can't.
No.
We can't, even if we run people who are green, or even if we have to run them 2 or 3 times.
Yep.
We can't continue to cede these cities.
That's true. I agree with you 100%.
I mean,
We've gotta
Dover
get
is
the cities.
huge, and Somersworth. Again, you know the list.
Yeah,
but
Sure.
we got to get some of those more. I mean, because we think about the big cities. We think about Concord and Manchester and Nashua, but we got to go after, like you said, we got to go after some of these more liberal areas, like the seacoast cities, and then the western cities up on the Vermont border.
Well,
right?
Western New Hampshire is almost got the same politics as Vermont at this point.
Right. I mean,
Except for
we
Hampshire.
got to go up. And Keene. I mean, you
Yeah,
know.
except for George, he knows
Right.
how to win
So-
there. I
Right.
mean, I think that would be good.
Right.
We're almost out of
We
time.
All
are-
politics is local.
Yeah.
So we are. I had a million more questions, but
I did
we're
too.
at the end. We're at the end.
Oh,
That
I'm
went-
sorry.
No,
What,
no,
did we
no,
monopolize
much
the
more-
Oh no
conversation?
We'll
that's
bring
the
it
whole
back.
point. It's just that it went so fast.
Yeah,
I
it
mean, so
did.
we got a lot of information. So
Yeah.
who do we have next week? Do we know who we have?
I don't
next
have my
week?
glasses, so I can't tell you, but-
I'll take a quick.
I
peek.
think we have some people from.
We all wear glasses. Now.
Yeah, we're getting there, right? So. Next week we got Doug Pounds.
That's your guy.
Doug Pounds.
Not your guy, but that's
from,
the one you picked out.
From Goffstown. So Doug's going to talk to us about the medical community and the insurance issues in the state.
That's a good one.
He's got some personal experience with it. He's into politics. He ran for office. He had to drop out due to some specific issues. We're going to talk about that. So.
I always joke that there's 4 people in the room when you go to see the doctor. There's you, the doctor, the insurance company, and the feds. And you're
They're all there.
And you're the least important person in the room.
Exactly. That's exactly it. I've always said that because of that dynamic, the doctor has absolutely zero motivation to actually cure you.
No.
If you walked into a doctor's office and he was able to give you a pill and a regimen and say, do this, it will cure you, you will go away and you won't come back.
Well,
you are not a repeat customer.
I have the same problem as the
Everything
firemen. If there's no fires.
is all about coming back. So, all right, we'll see you next week. Thanks, Chuck, for joining
Yeah,
us.
thank you,
And,
gentlemen.
We'll have
It
you
was
again
awesome.
soon. So, all right.
Thank you.